Okay, so we're back on Dave's K11 Micra today. Now, bit of a delay in getting this video done is, long story short, is that we've had a company look at Dave's gearbox and engine to make sure it's healthy. While it's out of the car, it just makes sense to have the engine service and the gearbox checked, and the gearbox did need some parts. But we're even now waiting 4 months for this work to be done, and it's really delaying the progress on this job, so I can't wait any longer. So I've thrown back in the mock-up engine that we used originally, and today we are going to get the exhaust manifold done. Okay, so plan of attack. We've got our head flange bolted to the engine. Now, I've already taken some measurements and taken the liberty to have some custom bends made. So this is a 75-degree angle. Obviously the engine's on a 15-degree tilt. So in theory, a 75-degree bend and a 90-degree bend will then point it perfectly in the direction we need it towards the back of the car. So other issue we've got as well is, obviously I'm going to terminate this into a 4-1 design, just because it's going to be a bit easier, and the Hondas do love a 4-1 compared to a 4-2-1, and obviously we're trying to fit it through a gap that was originally designed for 1.75 inch tube. Now, my Micra has got a 3-inch exhaust, and this has already got some anti-roll bar spaces on there, so 2.5 inch isn't going to be a problem. So I'm hoping to terminate the collector roughly about here. Now, unfortunately, this is the wrong collector. I'm hoping by the time I get this stage done here, we will have the right size collectors, because this is a 3-inch outlet and I want 2.5 inch. So I think if we can sort of aim for it to be there, because we've got this hump here for the steering rack, that's kind of the issue to get around. So yeah, we're going to aim for the collector to sort of terminate around there. So yeah, I want to mock up the first primary, and once we've got that mocked, we'll come back and yeah, we'll do a little progress update. Yeah, definitely on the right sort of the right path here. That has perfectly put the 90-degree flat with the floor, really. So we've just got the anti-roll bar to get around when we get to that point. So the way I'm going to do this manifold is I'm going to pair the cylinders up with 2 and 1 here. So obviously we've got cylinder 2 here. Cylinder 1 will come and sit next to it, about here. And then cylinders 4 and 3 will come down the back and come at the bottom of the collector. So what I need to do here is, obviously we've got a massive gap here, so just need to trim a bit more off this pipe here, this 75. Then we'll be able to push that 90-degree up a bit further. And obviously we could probably come up another 1.5 inches there, 1.75 inches, to maximise ground clearance, because the manifold is going to be pretty close to the floor on this. But from my calculation is that we agree about level with the anti-roll bar, so for ground clearance rise, that's going to be perfectly fine. So yeah, let's take these off, let's trim this, let's tack this, and let's come back and let's see how it sits. That's turned out pretty well. Just got to trim it ever so slightly. We've still got a bit of a gap there. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and tack cylinder 2 primary onto the head flange, just so we've got a solid datum. We'll come back, we'll make sure we've got it in the right place, and then there's no reason why the remaining part of the process can't be done on the bench, which will make life a lot easier. Okay, so that's cylinder 1 tacked up, and yeah, dead happy with that. We've got maybe 5 mil of clearance between there, but again, I'm not worried about that because we're going to cut these pipes all the way back to about here, put the collector on, and then the collector will dip down and give us about 1/2 inch clearance to that. So now we've got cylinders 1 and 2 done. We now need to think about cylinders 3 and 4. Now obviously we've got the engine mount here to account for. Now here's one I prepared earlier, is that I've already gone and done a little trim of this one, and then this one should tuck nicely behind, clear the half shaft and also clear this engine mount. So again, that's going to be easier to do on the bench. Now I've got these 2 pipes level, we've got to date them for our levelness. Is that a word? I don't know. But yeah, let's take it back off, back to the bench. So that there is a lovely piece, if I don't mind myself saying. Unfortunately, the custom bends I had done were a bit too short to make this one piece, so I have had to weld some little extension pieces in there to make them long enough, essentially. Can't get the words out. So now I've got this tacked up, let's go bolt it and back up to Dave's Micra and see how it looks. So from top here we've got loads of room between the manifold and engine mount, oil filter, etc. Let's have a look from underneath. Okay, so underneath, oh yeah, I'm dead happy with how this has come out. Obviously we're going to chop all this back to around where my finger is, then the collector will go on the end there. So looking pretty good, looking pretty good. So now we need to take it off, and before we weld it all up is we need to make a jig so we can reproduce this for the kits that you're going to buy. So let's get on with that. Okay, so a bit of a jump cut here. A few days later is we've got the manifold back on the car after making the little jig, and I've been waiting for a couple of days for the right size collector to come in. So this is what I've been waiting for. So it's 1.75 times 4 into 2.5 inch. However, the picture on the supplier's website does not match the product that I've received. Yes, it's the right in and the right out, but the picture shows it to be a lot stubbier. And the problem I've got is by the time you get the collector on there, is you've got no room literally to get the exhaust around the anti-roll bar. I have tried before anyone says anything, but yeah, it's just not going to happen. So I've bought from another supplier. Again, they listed as 4-in 175 2.5 inch out, and unfortunately this one came with a 3-inch outlet, but the overall stubbiness, as you can see, is much better, much easier to work with. Obviously I've had to make a little 3 to 2.5 inch reducer to go on there, but now that goes on, and we've actually got a bit of room there. So if I put you on this little stand here, like so, yeah, there you are, look. So you can see the collector, you can see the flange we've got it made up to. So this is obviously a bit of tube. That now clears the anti-roll bar. Also makes up with the flange. I mean, it does. I've already mocked it up, so you're gonna have to trust me. So I'm gonna get all this tacked up together, and what I'm gonna do is that there's two joins here. So we've got a 45 1D and a 45 2D, and let's split them. Yeah, so we are up. So what we'll do is that I'm going to make it to a 2-piece. So this piece is going to go before the anti-roll bar, so the manifold can be fitted without removing the anti-roll bar. Now once you've got that fitted, this will slip over the anti-roll bar, slip onto there. We'll have a flexi in here, and obviously finally our flange. So let's mock it all up. I'll come back, show you everything, and then we can actually finally get these manifolds done. This is the last step of the process. Okay, so we are pretty much done now. We have just welded up what I call the link pipe, because it links the manifold. We are reusing the factory K11 Micra hanger. So the midsection will sandwich this side of the bracket with a gasket, and then it will sandwich through with some long bolts, and that then becomes the hanger. We've got ample room over the anti-roll bar, albeit this is on a white line, so it does have the white line spacers, but that is something that we could provide if people do actually need them. And yeah, I think that's about as best as we're going to get it, really. I did and ah about the O2 sensor port location. I was going to put it in here, but I decided, well, because this bit's going to be removable on its own little jig, we might as well whack it here. At least that way they can screw in the O2 or wideband sensor here, and then they can use these brake lines here, the factory brake lines, to obviously cable tie the controller wires too. So next we're going to remove the link pipe. We're going to get that all welded up as needed. We're going to make the little jig that we need, take the manifold off, linish the head flange, and yeah, this job is pretty much done. And then we'll have a look at the goods laid out on the floor and in their beautifulness. So before I take this manifold off, I'm going to address the things that I'm not happy with on this setup, and that was this whole collector thing. Maybe I should have had the merge further up here, and it would have made this bit a bit easier. other thing I'm not happy with is that this particular collector here, for whatever reason, is designed for 45mm pipe and not 44.5mm, and it doesn't sound like much, but around all these tubes here there was a 3mm gap, which with a TIG welder, 3mm gap, pretty difficult to get that all buttoned in and looking nice. So unfortunately, I'm going to admit it because there's probably going to be people out there that's going to point it out. So I have welded it, and then I've done a pulse pass over all of the welds just to make it look a bit prettier, because honestly it didn't look that great and felt quite ashamed really to be producing that kind of work. Second thing is how low the manifold is. Now on the spicy Micra, the anti-roll bar is the lowest point on the car, and we're maybe half an inch lower on the exhaust here. Now on the K11s we do this front lower brace which bolts from here to here, and it kind of comes underneath here about the same sort of height as the manifold, and constantly getting destroyed on people's cars that are running way too low. So going to have to be a compromise. We could have maybe lifted this up another 10mm to gain 10mm there, but hindsight is always a wonderful thing, and you know, we do have ample room around here, so it swings and roundabouts. You can always do better, that's for sure. So let's get this off, let's get this welded, let's get this job buttoned up. Okay, so I said we would come back and look at the jigs when we were finished with the job. So this funky looking thing here is the jig for the tubular part of the manifold, and this here is a jig for what I call the link pipe. And as you can see, we've got 3 along the back here that we've already got done out of this little jig. So we'll just focus on this jig at the moment, which is for the manifold. Now, I think I've already said at some point in the video, we have 2 sets of bolt holes here for K20 and K24. Obviously K24 being 3/4 inch taller, we've accounted for that in the jig, because this is always going to be in the same place, and obviously with the K24 being taller, that will account for that difference between the 24 and the 20. Now this little petal looking thing here is our dummy collector. Now it's quite difficult to weld the what we call the clover press collector in the jig. So what we do is all 4 pipes will meet inside this dummy collector here, and then we can access it from this side and tack them all together, so that when we take the manifold out of the jig, it doesn't all just go squirrely whirly. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just put a manifold in there quickly to demonstrate. Okay, so we are back at the fabrication bench, and I did say that we would come back and we would look at the fixtures that I've made, so that allows us to reproduce this manifold without going back and forth to the car as we've done in this video. So if someone orders this in the future, I can bring the jigs out of storage, bring them to the bench and reproduce it without having the car here. So this is the main fixture. This is obviously what the manifold, the main tubular structure of the manifold is made in. And we've got 2 sets of bolt holes at the back here for K20 and K24. So you mount it in the lower holes for K20, and you mount it in the upper holes for a K24. And then down here is our dummy collector. Now the dummy collector allows us to bring all 4 tubes to a common area, so we can get them into a merge collector. And obviously we've got plenty of access on the back side here to tack the pipes together. So obviously once we've got to this point, we've got all our primaries welded, we've got them tacked to the head flange, we've got them tacked here inside the dummy collector. We can remove the manifold from the fixture, take the dummy collector out of the equation, and then that allows us to get in here, and we'll be able to put our slip merge collector on, and then we'll be able to terminate it off to this little pipe here. So what I'll do to give you an idea of how this works, I'll quickly put this finished manifold in this jig and you'll see what I mean when it comes to the second step. And there we go, hopefully that gives you a bit more of an idea of how this fixture is used. So obviously we've got this manifold bolted to the head flange. This is a K20 one, so it's in the K20 holes. The dummy collector is removed, and you can see that then gives us the extra space we need to come in here, weld the merge collector on, and then terminate it to this 2.5 inch 45. And obviously we've got loads of little telltales in here with pen marks and stuff, which sort of gives me an idea of what I need to do to complete this, because it might be weeks, it might be years in between making these, and you know, there's only so much information that we can remember. So that is part one. Part two is this little piece here, which is for our link pipes. Now unfortunately I don't think I can actually put these back in the jig, because this little piece here tells us where we need to basically draw a circle, and then the circle marks the spot to drill for the O2 sensor boss, and I think this is the only one that will fit in there. So, sort of. So obviously you bolt your flange to here, and then you see what I mean, you'd come in here with a pen and you'd sort of mark in that centre hole there for the O2 sensor, and then I've put a load of work on there. So to make this first mock-up probably took about 2 or 3 hours. Surprisingly, as simple as a part that it is, it's, you know, it's just a 45, a flexi with a 2 bolt flange on the end, but that's 3 hours of mock-up work there. And the jig maybe took an hour. Also used the plasma cutter over there to cut some nice little pieces for locators, and then for these other 3 took me maybe half hour each to make, from mock up in the fixture, polish, welding on the bar, and then going over to the belt sander to, well obviously not that one, but going over to the belt sander to finish them off to make sure the flange is flat. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight when it comes to jigs and stuff. Any questions? Pop a question in the comments section below. But yeah, let's wrap all this up, shall we? So here we go, one K11 Micra K-swap manifold complete. Overall, I'm happy with how it's come out. The collector situation, I think we've done the best we could have done with the situation at hand. Obviously, ideally, we could go down the route and get some custom collectors made to the specification that we need, so we wouldn't have to put welding this extra piece here to step it down to 2.5 inch. But that would raise the price of the manifold, because I would have to buy like 50 of them, and it would raise the price of this manifold too much. So yeah, got a nice soft flex on there, which will help take up the rocking of the engine, the vibration, and hopefully take all of the stress out of this manifold, and hopefully it will see some years of abuse. So yeah, we've got the engine to go in Dave's now, so I'm going to take this rather ugly, dirty looking engine out, and we're going to finally put Dave's engine back in, and that's going to allow us to install this manifold for one final time. But that'll be for the next video, so thanks for watching, see you in the next video, love you, bye.